Illinois' new budget begins July 1st. And if you have digital currency, plan to buy digital currency or plan to use digital currency for certain transactions, there's a new tax that's going into effect. And some Illinois state legislators say it's the first in the nation. Joining us to discuss this is Barrington, Illinois State Representative Martin McLaughlin. State Representative McLaughlin, thanks for taking time with us today for the state. You are pointing out that this is the first in the nation, but what exactly is in this tax and who is going to have to pay for it?
Yeah, so thanks for having me, first of all. Just so you're aware, in my private life, which, state rep's part-time job, I manage pensions for a living. So I'm very familiar with the different markets and what's been taking place. This proposal is essentially going to impact about 1 out of every 4 Illinoisans. And how I come to that is pretty simply. About 60% of everyone in Illinois has an investment account, and there are as many as 40% of that 60 holds or has traded in cryptocurrency of some kind, digital securities. So it's going to impact a significant number of people in Illinois, and it's a 0.2% tax. So for every $1,000 roughly, it'll be about a $2 tax. And if you've ever traded, you have an IRA, you've got pension or investment accounts. Again, that's a lot of people in Illinois, and it's not millionaires and billionaires. It's the working families that have pension, IRA accounts, and investment accounts who are just trying to get ahead.
How do you see this playing out if this continues forward and they bring in substantial amount of revenue? Do you think other states are going to point to Illinois and say, hey, that's some, people piggy bank money that we can tap into?
Well, these are, I call them ticky-tack taxes. I mean, look in the last 2 years, a bucket of paint's getting taxed. This year, tires are getting taxed, $2.50 each. So now, because they can't control the amount of money that they spend, they're looking at securities. And in 2023, the governor proposed an idea for stock and bond transactions, which was a terrible idea. Just to give you the numbers, Greg, it's 25 million transactions on a daily basis in digital, 100 million in individual stocks, and about 10 million in individual bonds. So as you can imagine, there's a lot of transactions, but the objective here really is just to backfill bad spending ideas from the supermajority Democrats.
Representative, let's take a look at just some of what is spelled out from your recent news release. This tax is going to equate to about 0.2% of digital currency transactions. You've got that just part of $800 million in total tax increases for this budget. But that's just on top of 57 total different line items of individual and corporate taxes and a whole host of other things, raising substantial amount of revenue for the state. Since Governor J.B. Pritzker came into office in 2019, how much is this particular digital currency tax expected to take from Illinois taxpayers?
Yeah, I don't have a complete number on that, but I think it's around 60 to 65 million is an estimate. But again, that's with an estimate, while digital currency is probably in I would say the first few innings, using a baseball analogy. It's not quite matured. So as it matures, and if the state pension plan or the municipal investment guidelines allows for digital currency, it's just unbelievable. We'll be taxing ourselves in our own pension plans and transactions for individuals who are just trying to put money away so they can retire and live in Illinois. It's just another unnecessary penalty for having an Illinois address.
Now, there's already a bill filed by one of your colleagues that would repeal this. State Representative John Cabello told the Center Square's Jim Talamani just this morning that there's some confusion about where this exactly applies. Is it going to be every time somebody uses a digital currency kiosk? Is it going to be between you and the broker that you're buying digital currency through? Is it going to be business transactions, or is it going to be all of it? You're saying it goes even to investment accounts.
Well, at the end of the day, if you're trading through any business, right? Chicago, well, let's be honest, we've lost 2 of our major trading. The Chicago Mercantile, no more Open Outcry, Chicago Stock Exchange, they're all gone. But if it goes to the business, it's pretty immature and ridiculous to imagine that business that's transacted will not pass the cost on to its consumers. So when they say it's just a business tax, which is what I think the intention here is, that cost will be passed on to fees to the consumer. So I don't unlink the consumer from a business. Whenever you raise taxes on business, it's not a standalone entity. The consumers are the ones that will pay the price.
You had mentioned this digital currency tax could generate $60 to $65 million, but Republicans also critical that this new budget has $800 million of increased revenue. At 60 to 65% is just a fraction. Where are all the other millions of dollars coming from?
Yeah, they're coming from net operating loss business deduction changes, and that's a bit of a word salad. But as a business guy, about 400 million in taxes there on businesses. There's taxes on sports wagering, fantasy sports wagering. So when you add it all up, a lot of, well, the tire one is just unbelievable in the last minute.
What's it going from $2 to $2.50 per tire?
$2.50. Yeah, of course. And unfortunately, spare tires don't seem to be included in that. But I don't understand why we can't control our spending. Other states have done it. We just seem to not have an appetite in Illinois to do it. And each and every year, we're at least $1 billion or $1.5 billion behind on spending before we get to June, which puts the onus on the supermajority to figure out where they're going to get more revenue from. Revenue is taxes, and they're going to come after our wallets again next year unless they control and limit spending. And they don't seem to have an appetite to do it.
Well, and what's driving that? What's driving that increased spending? Is it, pay for employees and unionized workforces with state government? Is it, the inflation that we've all been paying for out of our pockets? What's really driving that?
Well, if you remember during COVID, there was about $8 billion in federal resources that we warned the other side of the aisle, do not place permanent spending programs inside the budget. And they did. So we have permanent programs that are increasing every year that shouldn't be in there. I proposed a budget a year ago, along with Jed Davis, the first time in 20 years, a Republican alternative. And we were able to save about $5 billion to $8 billion by just applying business principles to government. Interestingly, Fred Crespo, who's a Democrat on the other side of the aisle, proposed a budget that was $4 billion less in spending, and they removed Fred from the Democrat caucus, and he no longer sits on any committees. So the idea that spending restrictions can happen and need to happen are at least starting to be recognized by some brave Democrats on the other side of the aisle. But if you raise your head, you're going to pay for it. So we need more brave Democrats, more fiscally responsible legislators to understand the only way to curb inflation is through less spending. Milton Friedman said it. I'm a huge devotee. Thomas Sowell, Hayek. Government spending is what causes inflation. And people want to know why we're behind the eight ball. Let's control spending.
It was another year of a last-minute budget drop. Representative having covered the Illinois legislature on the ground for 12 years. It's been that way practically every year. How can minority Republicans force there to be some more budget transparency, not just for Republicans who are expected to vote yes or no on the budget, but also for the taxpayers who ultimately are the ones spending the money for the budget? They don't find out until they wake up the next morning and read that you guys were in session until 5 o'clock in the morning.
Well, we had some successes. So LGDF, which should be at 10%, was threatened to go from 6.48 to 6.27. So we were able to keep that at 6.48. So, we've got to register some wins, and that was a win. The gas tax, myself and a few others were going for a complete repeal like Braun did in Indiana. And the governor did give the 1.2 cents per gallon, not what we wanted. We wanted a full elimination while gas prices were high. So we've had a few wins. The Bears, which I've been advocating for to do a straight deal in Arlington Heights, it appears now that the governor's reawoken to the idea of a straight business deal. So there are some wins that we can have. We just have to be concise in our messaging and to be precise in what we specifically want. The Democrats do feel pressure, and people have kind of had enough. So we've got to continue to message on spending. And again, let's return that local government distributed fund back to 10%. It's our money. That would be $1.3 billion going into our communities. So I'll continue to advocate for restoration of 10. I'm not happy that it stayed flat, but it was predicted to go down in February. So we had a win there.
But more to the timeline, reporters don't find out that, hey, the
Oh, yeah.
latest budget draft is at 3 o'clock in the morning and the Senate's going to vote on it in 20 minutes. And then you find out there was like a $500 billion line item that the governor had to veto. How can you guys force there to be more transparency so taxpayers know with more advance than, less than 12 hours of what exactly is going to be on that spending plan?
Yeah, the idea of complaining we're not in the room, I'm not a fan of. So what we try to do is go to subcommittees and try to call out, which we're able to do with a few line items. We need to continue to do that. We need to call out the governor's budget that he drops in February. We need to pick out where the problems are. And then as you get through session, I'd like to be able to say we know what's going to be in that bill. But even the Democrats on the other side of the aisle have no idea until 2 or 3 in the morning. So when it hits, we just have to be ahead of the issues that residents want. And they want affordability, low property taxes. They want to control spending. They want safe schools and better proficiencies. Those are the issues we've got to keep moving forward. And if the voters don't like the trajectory, then vote the bums out. Okay. I mean, let's be frank. If you want to change in the way the state's going and you've got somebody in your district that's been voting for all these spending increases, vote them out of office. It's the only way to make substantive change.
We've been talking about the budget process, the taxes, including the digital currency tax, and appreciate your thoughts on that. But unrelated, something else I wanted to get your thoughts on. Our reporter Jim Talamonte reporting that the Tollway Board is proposing big toll increases to kick in after the election in December or January, with automatic CPI connected adjustments every 2 years starting in 2029. Apparently, this means Illinois tollway users are going to get automatic toll hikes every 2 years to go along with those higher gas taxes every year. You're a suburban state representative. This will certainly impact you and your constituents. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think the estimate's going to be 45 cents to 90 cents, depending on whether you have an iPass or not. But it's an embarrassment. And let me explain why. I have business partners that come into Chicago from New Jersey, from Florida. And when they come here and they rent a car without that iPass, they're bringing bags of nickels. They look like they all own, washing machine businesses. They can't believe the nature of our toll system. So, yeah, it is wrong to continue on the backs of Illinois taxpayers, but to tie it to the CPI and suddenly act like somehow you're being, you're doing a forecast that's going to really be fair to everyone. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. People have had enough of it. Businesses are leaving the state. We need to put an end to it. And then the transition of the motor fuel tax and the way that the governor in the last 2 years has moved money around from accounts so that he can make his budget work. We have to call that out as well, and we have to do it in a better fashion.
Illinois State Representative Martin McLaughlin, thank you so much for taking time with us here for the states.